In 2013, I went to visit a friend in Colorado. I was living in North Carolina. I hadn't seen my friend in many, many years. Maybe, I don't know how many years, maybe 40 years, something like that, maybe even longer. He was in the final stages of lung cancer. I knew that this would be the very last time that I would see him. I was apprehensive about going. I was just felt like, oh gosh, this is overwhelming. So I said a prayer and I asked God to be who I needed to be for Stephen. That helped me relax before I went on my trip. I'm Maggie Weldon, founder of Leaving TRAUMALAND. I went on the trip, and when I got there, we had a very nice dinner and a nice visit with my friend Stephen and his older sister, and one of my high school friends came over, and it was a lot of fun. Stephen had a lifetime of traumatic events happen to him, meaning the experiences that he had what our family liked to call nervous breakdowns. He was in the final year of pharmacy school and he had one of his nervous breakdowns and ended up quitting school. He never had relationships that I know of with a woman or anybody, not a romantic relationship. He landed up living with his mother, dependent on his older sister. Sometimes they had to rescue him from court, go to court on his behalf, because he would do things like pull a fire alarm inside of a building. He had such a sweet demeanor about him. He was he was like childlike, but he was funny and he was very endearing, just so sweet. When during the dinner, Stephen asked me if I could take him to counseling the next day. And I said, of course I can take you. I had a rental car. Then he asked, can we go to my favorite restaurant, which was KFC? And I said, yes. So I picked him up. We went to lunch. When we were finished eating, he said, can we talk? And I said, sure. And then he said, back it up a little bit. There was a magazine article about this pottery that I used to produce, and I wrote about my trauma, and several people found out about that through that article. And Stephen was one of those people. He said, I just wanted to tell you how sorry I am about what happened to you when you were young. I said, Stephen, what I want you to know is that I have forgiven everyone. I have worked through all of my trauma, and it's as if no trauma has ever happened to me. Stephen replied, I wish I would have done that with mine. And I said, what do you mean? When he was 7 years old, he was at a camp and a priest raped him and threatened to kill him or do something horrible to him if he told anyone. I was like, oh my gosh, Stephen, I'm so sorry. His lifetime of trauma, his lifetime of, what's the word I want to say, the traumatic events that happened in his life after the trauma, everything, that it just all made sense. I was like, oh my gosh, I can just see everything, why it happened the way it did. I told him I was so sorry, and then I said, I love you, Stephen. And he said, what, you love me like pizza? I said, no, I love you. I was just heartbroken. I was the first person he was telling his secret to, and he was in the final stages of lung cancer. It was so heartbreaking. After lunch, I took him to counseling. His counselor came out and took him to the back room. Then the counselor came out and asked me if I would like to join them in counseling. I just thought that was crazy, but not crazy, but, and I said, yeah, sure. And I went in there, and they were sitting across the room from me, and I was sitting in my chair wondering, asking God, why am I here? Why am I here? I couldn't get it. It was kind of like a dim lit room, and the therapist was asking Stephen about any closures that he had, and kind of like a review of his life. And at one point, I heard Stephen say, basically, I let what happened to me when I was young destroy my entire life. Word for word. That's what he said. When I heard those words, I knew exactly why I was there. I was there to see the difference between what I did with my trauma. I transcended it. I cried all the tears. I did all the journals. I did all the work. And I didn't live with it anymore. And he lived with it his entire life. I was there to see the difference between what can be me and what could happen. He was only 62 years old. Oh my God. It took everything I had not to just like fall apart on the floor. I was just so, I just couldn't believe it. After counseling, I took him back to his assisted living. It was like a financially assisted apartment building that he lived in. I hugged him goodbye, knowing that I would never see him ever again. It was heartbreaking. That was in October of 2013, and he died in January of 2014. When I drove away from dropping him off, I started sobbing. I was sobbing a river of tears, just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. I couldn't see, so I had to pull off on the side of the road. I pulled off into a shopping center. I didn't have any Kleenex in the car. I was a mess. I tried calling anybody, any of my friends, my husband. I tried calling somebody. I just have to say this, tell somebody this story. But of course, nobody was answering their phone. I went into a bookstore, got myself all cleaned up as best I could. I thought I need to sit here and process what I just experienced, because I was exhausted. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe what just happened. So as I'm sitting there, a man came up to me, a young man came up to me, and he started telling me a story about something that happened on a plane, and now he's got all of these limitations. Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, da da da. And then I said, for some reason, I am here for you today. I just was in therapy with my friend who let what happened to him when he was young dictate how the entire rest of his life went. He lived with all the fears, and he just lived with it, and it permeated everything he did his entire life. All of the fallout was always there. And I said, I am here to tell you, don't let that happen. Do not. I said, he's in the final stages of lung cancer. He's not able to work on his stuff. He doesn't have a choice anymore. like all of his choices have been taken away from him. So I'm here to tell you to work on your stuff, and just, it's not easy, but it's the best thing for your life going forward. So I told him that. Then I drove back to my friend's sister's house, and she came walking towards me, and I kept thinking, I gotta keep it together, and then I couldn't. And then I said, did you know about what happened? I don't remember what she said, but that was life altering. At that point, 2013 October, I became very passionate about sharing my message and that story, Stephen's story, with all the Stevens, or all the whatever your name is, all the survivors, to tell them you do not want to get to that point in your life where you don't have options anymore. You can't work on your trauma. Your survival is at stake. Like, all he could do was basically live one day at a time in survival mode, because it was the end of his life. But to have that revelation when it's too late is not something that you want to do. You do not want to get to that point. And I am just so thankful that I had that experience where I could be with somebody and see that, so that I could tell others about what I saw, and then I could maybe give you the courage and give you the knowledge of what could happen when you, I mean, I don't know what age you are, but 62 is not very old. And trauma survivors, when they have 6 or more big T traumas, they go through a lot. A lot of times they die 20 years earlier. So, I don't know. I have a free ebook. A link will be in the description below. And my takeaway for you is to just commit to healing. Just say, okay, I don't have to live like this. I don't have to let trauma play out over and over and over in my mind, in my life. It's going to show up. It shows up. It showed up in Stephen's life. He never had relationships, never had kids, never, not that that's, everything that a person could want, but he just didn't function. His functioning was so, what's the word? So compromised because of the trauma. That fear was just locked in his soul. I'm happy that I was there for him to tell his secret. Anyway, that's it. So do something for yourself today. You can download the ebook. The link will be below. And take really good care of yourself. And it's not your shame to carry. It's not your guilt. The person who did something to you, they are the ones that should feel shame. But we take on the shame because we can't see our caretakers. We can't see ourselves so vulnerable. It's hard to see yourself vulnerable when you're an adult, but to see yourself that vulnerable as a child, it's just impossible. Our little brains could not have handled that. We could not have known how vulnerable we were. That we couldn't have the whole picture. We didn't even have the mental ability to have the whole picture. Like, one of the things is we didn't know what the consequences would be if we went with the perpetrator somewhere. We didn't know. We didn't have the overall picture. We were all trusting, all like loving. And then they are the ones that feel the shame, not us. So I could do a whole nother video on shame, but anyway, I love you, and stay courageous. and just, you have to move. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to get better, it's important to make changes every day. The world, whatever your experience is here to make you awaken, to make you see it. It's going to just keep, the bad dreams keep happening, everything keeps happening. But it's because it's time, and that you will find the strength, even though you don't think so. Even though you want to keep pushing it away, you will find the strength, and the strength will, the support, the tools will be there when you're ready. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.